Talking about Danica Patrick and what her NASCAR Cup Series career reveals about gender in motorsports. I'll explain some key moments from her time in the Cup Series and then show how the way people treated her exposes deeper issues for women in racing. My main point is that the rule book may be neutral, but the culture around NASCAR still isn't. Danica Patrick raced full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series from 2013 through 2017, driving for Stewart-Haas Racing. That made her the most visible woman at the top level stock car racing. My thesis for this presentation is, even though NASCAR technically lets men and women compete together with the same rules, Danica's experience shows that women still face unequal expectations, media coverage, and opportunities. Some Cup Series highlights. In 2013, Danica joined the Stewart-Haas Racing Cup team and ran 5 full seasons at the top level. That same year, she made history by becoming the first woman ever to win the pole position for the Daytona 500, qualifying at over 196 miles per hour. She also led laps in that race and scored several top 10 finishes over her career, setting best for a woman marks in NASCAR's premier division. The record versus the reality. Stat-wise, Danica made 191 Cup Series starts. She didn't win a Cup race and had several top 10 finishes, with season points usually in the low 20s. That's not championship level, but it's very comparable to a lot of middle-of-the-pack male drivers in similar equipment. The question I want to raise is, if her stats were middle of the pack, why did she receive so much more criticism and attention than male drivers with similar records? A male-dominated series. The context matters. Over NASCAR history, only a handful of women have ever started a Cup Series race. Right now, there are no full-time female drivers in the Cup at all. When current women racers talk about NASCAR, they describe it as a male-dominated environment where they constantly have to prove they belong. So Danica wasn't just another rookie. She was basically representing all women on the biggest stage. And on this slide, I added a chart here from 2019 by buildingspeed.org, which shows the number of women in top 10 in 2018, the year after Danica retired. And it shows in NASCAR, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series, there was no women who placed in the top 10. Barriers before the green flag. One big gender issue shows up before the cars even get on the track: sponsorship. Female drivers often say it's harder for them to get big sponsors and competitive rides. Teams and companies worry they're a risk, or they focus more on whether she is marketable than on her lap times. Danica, however, did land major sponsors, but a lot of that was tied to her image as a celebrity. My opinion is that women in NASCAR need both talent and a carefully managed image to get the same chances that the average male drivers receive based on their performance. Another gender issue is how the media framed her. Danica Patrick's GoDaddy commercials and photo shoots often highlighted her looks and sexuality as much as her driving. She was constantly called NASCAR's sex symbol, a label we rarely use for male drivers. In later interviews, she questioned this, asking why attractive women athletes are sexualized while male athletes can pose shirtless and simply be called marketable. This double standard shows how women in sports get reduced to their appearance much more than men. Double standards and criticism. When Danica made mistakes on the track, critics often jump to "this proves women don't belong in the Cup." Meanwhile, male drivers crash or have bad seasons all the time, and people usually blame the car, the team, or just bad luck. Some famous figures even said she'd only win if everybody else stayed home, and that if she was a man, nobody would care about her. This was said by Richard Petty, the man I added to this slide. In my view, those comments show that her reputation wasn't just about results, it was strongly shaped by her gender. Danica has talked about growing up and racing as usually being the only girl on the track. That brought tons of attention just because she was a female. She has said she sometimes avoided pink clothes or obvious makeup so male competitors would take her seriously. That reveals another gender issue. Girls in racing often feel they have to tone down anything feminine to be respected, as if femininity and competitiveness can exist together. On paper, NASCAR's rules are equal. Anyone who qualifies can race, but the structure that leads to the cup is not equal. The youth series, sponsorship pipelines, and development programs are shaped around male expectations, with very few female role models and far less media coverage of women coming up the ranks. My opinion is that the whole system is still built around men, which makes reaching the Cup Series much harder for women, no matter how talented they are. Danica's own views. Interestingly, Danica herself sometimes says she did not feel direct sexism, and she has repeated some traditional ideas, like suggesting racing requires a mindset that isn't typical of a feminine personality. She's also taken controversial positions and current debates about gender in sports. I include this because it shows that even someone who breaks barriers can still have complicated or even contradictory views about gender. That makes the conversation more realistic and not less important. To wrap up, Danica Patrick proved that a woman can qualify on the pole for the biggest race in NASCAR and compete full-time in the Cup Series at the same time. The way fans, media, and sponsors treated her, focusing on her looks, doubting her talent, and using her mistakes to judge all women, exposes ongoing gender bias in motorsports. My opinion is until NASCAR changes how it funds, promotes, and talks about women drivers, Danica's story will stay an exception instead of becoming the new normal. Considering her own competitors have made comments about her shows, considering her own competitors have made comments about her shows how bad the image the Cup Series has against women, and that is something that should be changed in the future. Thank you for listening, and here are my sources.